Hello everyone, welcome to another review on the channel. This time it will be for the recently released Dead Space Remake. I have played over 37 hours. I did 2 playthroughs, one on Impossible mode and another one on New Game Plus, hard difficulty, with only the plasma cutter, and I got all achievements. So everything that was to be done in this game has been done, and overall this is a really good package, ranging from graphical improvements to actual gameplay changes and new cool story reworked segments. Motive Studios did a phenomenal job at capturing the original Dead Space atmosphere, and all the additions included here are welcome and don't feel out of place. In order to fully grasp what I am talking about, let's go over the different sections, shall we? The first one, NPCs and characters. There is not much new here compared to the original, but seeing as I don't have a review up for the 2008 release, I'll go into detail in each section, even if these are not new elements. The cast for Dead Space is very good, in my opinion. It's not too large, and every time you meet a new character, it's a big event, since you are on a derailing ship full of hordes of necromorphs. Survivors will be hard to find, or see. Aside from your main crew that visits the USG Shimura, you'll only meet a handful of characters. Their reasonings, hallucinations and motivations are all very interesting and fit very well in the story the developers want to tell. On the remake side, Motive Studios did a few changes. The most evident one is clearly the fact that Isaac Clarke, the protagonist, is now fully voiced acted by Gunnar Wright, which is the voice actor from Dead Space 2 and 3. And along with Isaac, every character has been wonderfully remade graphically and with new animations. Motive also replaced one of the minor characters from Isaac's repreg crew, which screams a bit of feminism as the character was male, but I'll let that slide as it doesn't impact the story game in any way. Seeing Isaac more often and actually speaking makes the game more immersive, although you can counter my point here and it's a matter of preference. I hated the fact that in 2008 Dead Space, whenever someone spoke to Isaac he never reacted, it just feels a bit off for me. And overall, I love the work done on the facial expressions, major improvements and some of the decisions made to improve immersion around Isaac. Next section is story. Dead Space story is elevated by the oozing atmosphere that can be felt when Isaac is walking around the USG Shimura, but the center and core of its plot is very interesting and dark. As you'll find almost at the end of the game, all the things happening on this ship ultimately revolve around politics, as many things do. Earth has one single governing body, and it's called EarthGov. The government found a marker a long time ago and tried to replicate an artificial one, but things went badly and they discarded it on a far-off planet and swept everything under the rug. However, a person claimed to have seen the marker and witnessed it after this, which makes the Church of Unitology come into fruition, and ever since those days they are after the marker. I think you can connect all the other threads as you play the game, but I do have to say the timing for certain reveals is very well done, and the developers build the suspense well. From the first moment Isaac sets foot on the USG Shimura, it's an uphill battle of survival and continuously fixing the ship whilst trying to escape and find out more about what happened behind it. The New Game Plus secret ending seems more like a continuation of the original ending, but I would say it's worth to experience and see some of the marker's influence on Isaac's mind, and what you can expect on Dead Space 2. What I truly loved about the Dead Space world is how it balances survival horror elements in its story with major politics. How it all plays out, the fascinating dialogue from Unitologist members like Dr. Mercer is truly fantastic. The next section is progression systems. The systems embedded in Dead Space's combat are very simple and there aren't many significant changes done by Motive Studios. Throughout the game, you'll keep increasing your arsenal of guns, and organically, you'll also be acquiring schematics and new upgrades for those guns, as well as your suit. These upgrades range from new special abilities for your own guns, could be an alternate fire mode, perhaps a wider range for your beam, as well as higher damage, more capacity, you get the gist. Same for your suit, higher armor, more oxygen, higher stasis duration. It's very simplistic, but it's all you need to feel more powerful and for weapons to feel slightly different. Motive Studios expanded a few of these upgrades on some weapons, so now every node that you see on a weapons upgrade path can be acquired and purchased. Previously in Dead Space 2008 there were some nodes that had no upgrade and were just treated as a breach for new upgrades, but they needed to be acquired. The changes make sense and allow for more powerful versions of your weapons and suit. You also get access to a store throughout the game where you can buy ammo, medkits, oxygen tanks, stasis refills, and even buy new upgrades depending on your story progression, so don't ignore the store. Overall, simple yet effective progression system with only a few changes by motive that actually make sense and that aren't here just for them to say, hey, we also updated some of the progression systems. The next one, and the biggest one, combat and exploration. Honestly, this is what everyone is looking forward to when they speak of Dead Space. Not that its story and lore isn't interesting, as you can denote from my opinion in the previous sections. I am pretty much in love with this world, but if I had to point one thing, just one thing that makes me want to return to Dead Space and makes me want to instantly do another playthrough on New Game Plus, it has to be its combat. It's not fast, but it's chaotic. The best thing about it, and I'm sure if you ask anyone it will be the same answer, is the fact that you can cut off any limbs from necromorphs or enemies in general. It never grows old and it's done so effortless that you would think more horror games could do this. I'm looking at Resident Evil. How cool would it be to add this kind of system to Resident Evil? You can't say enemy variety is wide, but for how long it takes to finish Dead Space, what's on the table is pretty good. There is enough variety to keep you interested throughout its 8 to 10 hours campaign, and the developers are smart enough to make sure new enemies are introduced in a fashionable way. I remember getting the flamethrower and the game introducing me these annoying little burgers that are a perfect match for the gun that I just acquired. Everything that is introduced to you regarding combat, new enemies, a new gun is all done organically, and it seems it was thought to the T, to make the player experience more immersive and overall more satisfying. In combat you can use a plethora of guns, kinesis, which is basically a gravitational tool, not different from what you had in Half-Life for example, which is super cool because you can cut off enemy limbs and then just grab them using the kinesis tool and spear them to a wall with their own limbs. How cool is that? Stasis will let you effectively basically freeze enemies. This is good for crowd control, and the developers design corridors and set pieces so you use all these tools at your disposal. The force gun is just brutal and will instantly destroy all the limbs of an enemy. The contact beam is a continuous beam that will melt any enemy, but my favorite has to be the good old reliable plasma cutter. There are more weapons at your disposal and all have some sort of alternate fire mode. All of this complements the different enemy design and variety, so Motive also did a few changes when it comes to some of the guns and fire modes, making them a bit more versatile, which is very welcome. Overall, the combat in Dead Space is not fast but methodical. You'll have a wide array of tools at your disposal, which makes the combat more interesting, and it's up to you how you want to handle each enemy encounter. The map of the USG Shimura is so beautifully crafted that it makes exploration a welcome activity. Backtracking is never a chore, and the new side quests implemented by Motive, along with the breathtaking graphical changes, make for a good package. The tense atmosphere, along with good usage of colors, especially in certain rooms and closed corridors, makes you super alert and really allow yourself to immerse in this world and on this survival horror experience overall. Positives and negatives. I can say I have a big negative that stuck out to me. I think that Motive's remake is a pretty successful take on the 2008's Dead Space done by Visceral. If I had to point out something, it would be more of a pet peeve, and that's how easy the game has become, especially with some of the changes made. I only used the plasma cutter on the second playthrough and I cruised through the entire game. What makes the game so easy is really the fact that enemies can't really close the gap and can't get to you, and if you are good at cutting off their limbs and have a good aim, I just don't see how this game can be classified as hard on any of the difficulty modes for you. The new upgrades and alternate fire modes have made the game way too easy, and I think a new difficulty is surely in need. That's the only negative that I could point out here on this remake. And I mean, it could be a glaring one for some people, and I guess it was for me on the second playthrough. I just wish that they maybe, there are new variants of enemies, they are more tough, and the limbs, for you to cut them off, it will take more bullets effectively, but it's just not enough, they needed to do something. I don't know what, but add maybe a new enemy, like putting more enemies on some corridors that makes you like have to really think through that encounter. I don't know. As you can guess, aside from that, everything else is a positive for me, and as I mentioned before, the immersive tense atmosphere, the new graphical upgrades and facial animations, the new feel of the guns, and fantastic side quests that add more to the lore and plot are all fantastic additions and makes this remake one to experience. Final thoughts and score. Dead Space Remake is a successful, low-risk undertaking by Motive that feels like a revival of a dead IP. The financial success of this remake can easily translate into a Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3 remake, or even a new Dead Space, and I deeply want to lose myself into this interesting world again. I recommend you to go buy this remake at any price if you are a fan of survival horror games, or if you never played the Dead Space game. For veterans, I would buy it on a discount, as there is really not enough things that warrant a full €70 price. I think for veterans of this genre, of this world, Dead Space, there isn't really anything like big that would dictate a €70 price. I would think at a discount like 30-40 euros, that's maybe more fair for what they offer here. So this is a wrap, guys. I really love this remake, and so far 2023 is having a few bangers early in the year, with the exception of 4 shit, of course. So expect a full review for Hogwarts Legacy and early thoughts on Wild Arts pretty soon on the channel. Thanks for watching the video, and see you on the next one. Bye, guys.